training. Triathlon is a lot of times looked at as an individual sport, and even though you might have teammates or training partners, a lot of times you're doing training solo, whether you're trying to squeeze something in before work, or you're squeezing some in other places, or just you got to go out for that solo 4-hour, 5-hour ride, or do that 5K swim in the pool. And it's occupying your mind and figuring out ways to get through that workout that's going to eventually help you get through those long races, or the points in time when the clock just seems to slow down. I always think that hard workouts go faster because you get to focus on something. You break things up into intervals, and if we're taking swimming, for example, I would much rather do a test set of 10 300s or 30 100s on a specific interval and working my way through, because I'm very much a numbers person and goals oriented. I'll break that down and be like, the first 3 I'm trying to hold this pace and then slowly bring it down. And introspectively, I'm looking at how I'm feeling, kind of going through this mental checklist of my stroke and being focused on increasing that pace and kind of like tightening the screws a bit to get faster throughout it. So there's a lot to kind of focus on a hard workout. Whereas, an easy 3K swim, I think, are some of the hardest workouts to get motivated for and to get through, because you have to figure out, especially when your coach is just, oh, go swim 3K, you have to figure out the workout for yourself and think about how you're gonna break it down. So for myself, I spend a lot of time switching it up. I try and find paddles in the middle of pull sets. I count strokes and try and work on my distance per stroke. Sometimes I'll do some breath control, and I just kind of break that down by 25 and maybe try and take one less stroke each 25, or take one less breath and then kind of reset and work my way through. I just try and break stuff down into smaller segments. Like a 500 is way easier to think about, or a 100 is way easier to think about than a 1K. So, and that goes for biking and for running as well. So whether it's working on, trying to just get to that first turnaround in the run route that you go, or the race, or whether it's just that first point when you're taking your nutrition on the bike on your long ride, it's that sort of stuff to look forward to and break it into smaller segments that really helps. I think everybody has those workouts where it's mentally difficult for you to wrap your brain around. I think it's swimming for a lot of people that is just really hard mentally. Like, there's less stimulus. You're in a pool, like you're staring at a black line, and all you have is really the clock to help break it down, and to break those intervals down, or by 25. And if you try and add up every 25 that you're doing, it starts to get overwhelming. Whereas the bike and the run, you have stuff to look at, you have distractions, you have to pay attention, whereas swimming's easier to zone out. So there are times when I've had to do 1,000 repeats, or go through and do a 1,500 hard swim. So with that, there's always ways to break it down. Like, you could take a look and say, okay, I just have 3 1,000s, and that might seem overwhelming. So you go and you're like, okay, so this first 1,000, I know I can get through that. And I know that, I can break it down in the past workouts. The 300s felt really good. So it's really 3 300s and a 100 at the end that I can pick it up for. In a race, it's basically one big long interval. And if you look at, sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, Ironman, and you're looking at this, 4-hour plus day, 2-hour plus day, that can seem overwhelming, where if you break it down, you're like, all right, the swim is X amount of time, 20 minutes to an hour, depending on your distance. And then you could break that down to first buoy, and then you could break that down even more to just the first few strokes and finding your rhythm. So it might seem like, oh, I can't break this stuff down, there's no real way to do it. But I always feel like there's a certain way you can find a certain checkpoint, or first few steps, first few strokes, and really just break it down into something that in your mind is easy to kind of accomplish. Using other tools, music, Zwift, just different things to distract you during the training I think it's a good tool. Like, music can help you get that extra little boost out of you. And I used to run with music quite a bit, and actually got away from it because I found just like as I was running, I was able to focus more on my breath, and I was able to focus on the cadence of my feet and my form. And there's just a point in time when I shifted away, and I kind of used the run almost as like a meditation at times, like just kind of focusing in on like visualizing the race, going out and getting the workout done. Just what do I have to do later in the day sometimes? Whereas, the bike, I have one ear of music for most of the time, and that kind of helps me in a way focus in and I guess get to that meditative state a little bit. And even in the swim, there's kind of like a meditative thing. So it's trying, I think, always to get as close as you can to what people call like the flow state, where stuff comes easy and you don't have to find those strategies. You don't need that strategy to make it go faster. But that's what I think is helpful for those tools like Zwift and all of that, because it distracts from how slow time can go when you're bored or when it's hurting. I think really what it's about is finding what works best for you. So if you're out there and you're like, I really need to be bored because when I'm racing, I am just bored out of my mind on the bike because I'm out there for 4 hours or something. Whereas like with me, there are some courses that I guess can be boring, but I'm always doing something during a race. I'm planning out my next nutrition stop. I'm taking in water. I'm thinking about my form. I'm going through this major checklist and trying to break down, like get through the first 15 minutes of the bike or the first 20K or get to the first turnaround. So for me, I feel like there's always something going on in a race. Whereas in training, yes, you're still breaking that down, but if I can use that music to maybe get those extra 10 watts or something there, I'll know, because I take that confidence from the training and go, okay, well, I did that there. And now's a race situation when I'm rested, my mind is focused, and I'm working my way through this race, and I can push that then. And it's one more thing for me to kind of focus in on. I'm Ben Kanute, and that's getting through boredom in training and even in racing.